Fame, money, and power are real aphrodisiacs. And it's a slippery slope. And that's why a lot of the time you need real friends, people that you can trust. I've been a laborer, I've washed dishes, I've worked in factories. And then I watched a documentary that changed my life. The documentary is called
Actors and actresses, do they make enough money?
You know, do you know how much money we made back? Return on investment for Run Baby Run? 0.
From captivating us on screen in Home Sweet Home to leading a multi-million-dollar company as CEO of E-Transact, John Apea has done it all. But how did he make the leap from actor to investor, oil and gas entrepreneur, and business leader? And more importantly, how can Ghanaian creatives reinvent themselves beyond fame and build sustainable wealth for the future? In this exclusive conversation, he shares his journey, his strategies, and the blueprint for creatives to stay relevant, make more money, and secure their future long after the spotlight fades. If you're in the creative industry or just looking for the game-changing business insights, this is one interview you can't afford to miss.
Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." How you think is what empowers you to do the unbelievable.
You've reinvented yourself so many times to be who you are today. Why can't some of these people be like that?
But Derrick, the thing is that
So do you think that you'll be able to become financially successful from being an actor?
No. If the structures are not going to be built for us, we have to be in a position to help build those structures.
You're welcome to Connected Minds podcast. And I'm your host, Derrick Abaitey. Today's conversation, I think it's going to be a good one because I've got 1,000 questions that I want to ask this man, Dr. John Apea. And he used to be on our screens in the past, showing us, all the great things on Home Sweet Home and Run Baby Run. He's done a fantastic job with awards and several things. But today, he's in the studio as the CEO of E-Transact in Ghana for the many things that he's done. I want to talk about it. I want to understand where he's come from, where he's actually going, and what brought him to where he is now. So stay connected. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you, sir.
I never went to school for this. And I know you're very good at this. So you're probably looking at me thinking, Charlie, I can teach you a thing or two. So I'm ready to learn.
I'm retired.
You're retired? Yeah, so the true answer, how are you? What would your answer be?
How are you? I think when people always ask me that, I always say, I'm okay. Yeah, I think it's just, we're all
Okay.
Yeah,
because sometimes I feel like we get the I'm fine, I'm okay.
Yeah.
But that's like a slab on top of everything else, right? So we all move around saying, I'm okay. But there are things inside, there are several things inside that nobody wants to crack. So if you're okay, I'm okay too.
Great.
Right. So you started off as an actor. Now, I watched you. My family watched you. Friends and all of that watched you. But what I'm so curious about is what your plan was while you were on the screens.
So, Derrick, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. And I think you've done an excellent job what you do. Getting into acting for me was an accident. It was accidental. I'd done a few plays when I was in school, etc. My older brother, Emmanuel, is a filmmaker, film director. And so he was the original creator of Taxi Driver.
Okay.
Yeah, with a gentleman of blessed memory, John Kay. But I remember when Emmanuel conceptualized the idea of Taxi Driver, it was from a film with Robert De Niro called Taxi Driver. where a taxi driver picks up so many different people from the walks of life. So at this time, we're all in England. And my brother Emmanuel, although he's a filmmaker now, he was an economist. He studied economics in university in London, worked in the city. But his real love and desire and passion was for film. And, you know, with African parents, my dad and my mom were wondering exactly what is going on there, you know. But he created that idea. And I loved when I started seeing the scripts and stuff he was writing. So he called me about Home Sweet Home, that he wanted to do a TV show that, like, you know, the key to doing a TV show at that time, and even still now, is that you want something that has strands to everyone's lives.
Okay.
And at that point in time in Ghana, with Taxi Driver, for instance, you realize that a taxi driver will meet so many different people from different walks of life, from the market woman to the doctor, to the journalist, to the lawyer. At any point in time, everyone will take a taxi. Whether you got a car, you don't got a car. There's one day when your driver is not around or your car is not working or what have you, and you jump into a taxi. Or someone has taken a taxi at some point in their life when they were at university, etc. So the whole idea was to use that as a lens to get into people's lives, to find out what happens into different people's lives. Home Sweet Home was also very different because you realize that there's a thread that runs through everyone's life. Everyone is part of a family.
Yes.
Everyone has a family. Even if the person has been adopted, they're part of a family. If the person was born and didn't know their dad or their mom, the children's home was their family. Everyone was part or is part of some type of family unit. So the whole idea of Home Sweet Home, modeled on The Cosby Show, modeled on My Wife and Kids, was that every person has a family in Ghana. So let's use a phrase, Home Sweet Home, to say that this is where it all starts from.
Right.
And the whole idea was to build a family that is aspirational, that a lot of Ghanaians want to be like them, want to live where they are living, and to see that it is possible to have all those things, you know? So I loved what he had built, the whole conceptualization. My brother moved to Ghana with his wife, Junia, who is also a producer on the show. And they had done all the casting and everything. And 2 weeks before shooting, the character who was supposed to play my role, Junia, dropped out. Because they thought that the role, you know, Junia was a bit of a naughty boy, rough guy, you know, like how you used to be when you were younger, Derrick. You know, so he thought maybe you would typecast him in a particular way. So I was the only one who knew the scripts inside out. And I'd actually done some of the auditioning. You know, I'd auditioned people for that role. And my brother knew how good I had been when I was auditioning people for those roles. So I was in Canada at that time.
Okay.
And he called me and he says, you know, the guy who's playing the role of Junia in Home Sweet Home has dropped out. And I've tried doing auditioning, but I need someone who has a bit of that X factor, you know, someone who has both the Ghanaian experience and the UK or American experience, because the family is that aspirational family, you know, who've studied outside, lived outside, that type. So I need someone who brings a little bit of a swag to it. And I've looked around, I've interviewed, I've auditioned many people. I can't find the right person. So can you just come down and do 7 episodes? We'll shoot those 7 episodes within like a month and a half, and you go back to your life. But you will have helped me out. Because by that time, I'll have been able to now audition someone to come and take off your role. So that's how we started. I came in, my younger sister also came in the role of Jessica. She was the first Jessica.
Okay.
So it was like, once I came in, we just thought that, okay, we work well together. So let's try and help our brother out on his big break. So I came and I shot the 7 episodes, but not knowing it was a bit of a trick. Because
You had plans.
because by the time the 7 episodes had been shot, they had started, the first episode had already started on TV. Like by the time we shot the 4th. So now I was getting a lot of love.
Oh.
At Frankie's and all the other popular places. So I was like, oh, wow. Like I'm being recognized places. I'm not having to stand in line when I go to bars. So I think my brother had realized that fame thing will get into my head and I'll not want to leave. And he was right. Yeah, so I stopped whatever I was doing and I stayed in Ghana for about 3 years.
And enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it. But what happened was, initially I just came in as an actor. But then I started writing. After the 7th or 8th episode, I think between that and the end of Home Sweet Home, I probably wrote about 80% of the scripts, which was a gift I didn't realize I had. I didn't know I was a writer. I knew I could act, but I didn't know I could write. And that is one thing that I discovered, the ability to be able to write scripts. And that took it on, I think, a different trajectory because being like you and having a different side to my personality, I started dealing in more social type of issues and trying to tap into what young teenagers and early 20s were going through. You know, even though I wasn't married, and like, what do young married couples go through? What are guys going through? What are girls going through? You know, I started exploring those aspects. And so you realize that Home Sweet Home was not just your typical entertainment comedy. It had the comedy, but if you remember, if you watch it closely, after episode 10, 11, it started going away from just normal house parties.
Yeah. To a bit of social interventions as well.
To a bit of social interventions, dealing on issues, on drugs, teenage pregnancy, HIV, all those avenues started coming in, which led to Run Baby Run, which was about drugs and drug mules, you know. So that social consciousness, you know, because I've always believed that the role of an artist, whether a musician or a journalist or a podcast producer or presenter or actor, actress, is not only to entertain. You know, you can entertain, but you also have a responsibility because of the pulpit you've been given, you know, to effect change when you can, you know. And we're seeing that increasingly with footballers and other, when you, with great responsibility, and with great power comes great responsibility, you know. So I think I realized that early on, that I could be in the washroom and I have an idea and I'll write it whilst I'm in the washroom. And a week later, what I wrote, I'm seeing it on national TV.
Yeah, we're filming it.
And I'm going to places and people are quoting things that I've done, you know, things that were said in the episode that I said, you know. And so it was a real empowering side of.
But from that time, all the things that were happening on the screens, you've moved. In fact, you've done so much from that time to today, while we're speaking today, that I really want to understand where you thought that was going to take you on the screens.
Okay, can you come again, Derrick?
While you were on the screens, where did you think your life was going? What was the trajectory of your life, your plan at the time?
You know, Derrick, I don't think at that time I had a plan. What I realized when I was doing TV was the power of media.
Okay.
And one thing I've always been passionate about is social change.
Okay.
I've been fortunate in life with breaks that I've had by virtue of my parents being able to give me a good education, etc. But I know it is not because I'm special in any way. It's by the grace of God that
Did you think you were going to work for Commonwealth? Did you think you were going to end up being the CEO of eTransact?
No.
Did you have any plans of, you were just enjoying the moment?
Yes, no. So I enjoyed the moment for probably the first 2-3 months.
Okay.
Then I started realizing that I had a responsibility to use those enjoyable moments to do some good. So I started off with incorporating that into my writing.
Your script, okay.
But my idea, in all honesty, was to maybe build something larger out of that. You know, before Home Sweet Home, there was Things You Do for Love. And you realize that I brought people like Majid who were in Things You Do for Love. Jackie came into Run Baby Run, you know. I recognized what Things We Do for Love also did because it was supported by John Hopkins. So it was like an entertainment education piece. It had the drama side of it, but it also had the educational side of it. So if anything, I was thinking of being able to set up some type of an institute or to find ways in which I can use entertainment for something deeper, you know, but I didn't realize that I'll actually go full circle now working for international organizations that actually do those type of programs as well. Because my dad worked for the Commonwealth Office.
Okay.
I never thought I'll follow in those footsteps. You know, I didn't think my dad never thought I'll follow in those footsteps. You know, I always give the story, Derrick, of when my brother and I were always the arty types, right? So we were the types who won prizes in school for music, art,
Dance,
history,
kind of
not dance. My brother and I are useless dancers.
Okay.
You know, but we won for all the type of arts. Then my sisters won for science.
Yeah.
You know, speech day, what happens? When they said science, math, all the parents are like, when it's art, everyone's like,
Charlie.
So I remember when I ended up getting my master's, and it was a Master of Science. So I called my dad. I said, Dad, can you believe I have a Master of Science? Yeah, so my dad didn't think that. I didn't think that. I didn't think of the trajectory I was going in. But I'll tell you what changed.
Before you tell me what
My
changed,
life later on.
Yeah, because I've written it down.
Yeah.
As when the switch happened. Because I really want us to stay on here because our film industry,
Yeah.
actors and actresses, do they make money? Enough money? Do they?
You know, arts and people who are in the arts in Africa, probably less so Nigeria and South Africa, but for the rest of Africa, I've had a very bad hand. Because we've had amazing talent. Amazing talent. And we always used to say that this is the only part of the world usually that when you enter a plane, all artists go to the right in economy. In the West, you enter a plane, the artists are all to the left in first class or in private jets. Here's the opposite. You have the business people in first class in business. You have the greatest artists all on your right. I mean, Kofi Buckner of blessed memory. Kwejo Datsun of blessed memory. The list is countless. Sam Ajetefio.
Yes.
I mean, we've had great Nigeria. You have like Olu Jacobs, rather trained. The Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts trained in the 60s. We've had a lot of talent that we have not used, that policies and government initiatives and incentives have not supported. So the structures are not there. If the structures are not there, how do you expect people to make money? Until Silverbird came with Run Baby Run, we had to actually rent the National Theatre and turn it into a cinema. Bring your own screens and everything to be able to do the premiere of Run Baby Run. Because at that time, Silverbird wasn't there. So the film TV industry is where you have to build your own structures to be able to now build those rails that you can make money from. Dangote's refinery that he's developed in Nigeria, he had to build his own side of the port and build his own roads to be able to transport some of the equipment.
What a challenge.
The equipment were too big for the normal ports. They were too heavy for the normal roads. So in Africa, you have to build your own rails and then get your own revenues. How are the actors and musicians supposed to do that? Musicians, outside you have Billboard 100, you have in UK, you had top of the charts. You have a mechanism through which to make money. Here, it's all over the place. So of course they are not making money. You have amazing young actors like Majid. These guys should be in Hollywood. What avenue do they have?
Because we just spoke about TT. Before the guy passed, he was on social media. And I usually talk about this on this podcast that, the systems may not be there. But you've changed, you've reinvented yourself so many times to be who you are today. Why can't some of these people be like that?
But Derrick, the thing is that by the grace of God, I reinvented myself in different spheres. And I think I was fortunate to have the foundation that I had. The exposure I had, the education I had allowed me to be able to explore other avenues. A lot of other people are maybe typecast in a particular area. Or sometimes when you've not been that exposed, you're not empowered enough to believe that anything is possible. Like I said when we were chatting before, Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. How you think is what empowers you to do the unbelievable. So if you think this is all I can do, sometimes how with chickens, they've chained the chicken for so long, or they tied the chicken for so long, when they actually remove it, the chicken stays there. It goes and it comes. And you want to tell the chicken it's November. December is around the corner. Run away.
Run, baby, run.
Run, baby, run. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes our mindsets, we're locked up in that. We're locked up in that. So you've had lots of amazing people who have been big fish in small ponds. And I was looking at these guys who I worked with, of who I mentioned, Kofi Buckner, Kojo Datsun. These guys are trained in the United Kingdom in the best film schools, acting schools. They had come back because this is where they wanted to be. But the economy was not ready
But also,
for them.
Let's talk about fame, the excitement, and the decisions we make when that time happens. Because you would agree with me that the fame does something to you. And if you're not careful, you will drop so low, you can't pick yourself back up again.
Yeah. Fame, money, and power are real aphrodisiacs. And it's a slippery slope. And that's why a lot of the time you need real friends, people that you can trust, to tell you when you're an emperor with no clothes on. But you're right, the decisions that we make really do affect us. And a lot of the time, the advices we have around us also have an impact. But it also comes down to the foundation that we had prior to. Like I see how flat your stomach is. I'm sure, you see, if you worked out and you were an athlete for many years and you still kept within that rhythm, even when you stop, your muscles are so built that they are able to withstand shocks or bad eating that comes later on. You know, because even your body is able to just like how with cars we have what do you call those boards? Motherboards, or you know, the body has a memory system. You know, just like how the bed memory beds memory foam. Everything has a memory. And you just have to do it in such a way that you channel the memory to a particular point. You leave it, it always comes back. It always springs back. So for me, the foundations that we have are the most important thing.
Did you think, as a young man growing up, being on the screens, did you think that you'd be able to become financially successful from being an actor?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why I left the space, because, like I said, I think my options were either I realized early on that there were no structures in place. So I can be a big fish in this small pond, or my plan was to find other spaces that have structure that I'm good in. So it's kind of like, if you call it, like a professional osmosis, so to speak. Find spaces that have more structure. Find spaces you can be successful in that you also enjoy. And as part of your CSR, maybe put it back into the things that don't yet have structure.
Now, at this point then, when did that switch happen?
That switch. I think that switch happened. That switch happened in my mind.
Okay.
In about 2007. Yeah, because, you know, after we did Home Sweet Home, we came out with a film, Run Baby Run. It was very successful, won lots of awards. The Africa Movie Academy Award.
2008.
Won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. I think Best Child Actress for Nina, my sister in Home Sweet Home. But we were nominated for about 9. We were on Nigerian turf. And we went and we cleared the biggest awards, which was unheard of. Previously, prior to that, you didn't have a non-Nigerian film winning Best Picture. If you had, it would have been like a South African film or something of that sort. So I think up to that point, the switch hadn't happened, because up to that point, it still seemed possible.
Okay.
There was a big sponsor behind the African Movie Academy Awards. And they told us that for Best Picture, Best Screenplay, Best Director, each one came with a cash sum, a big cash sum. So we thought, if we win only one, this was about 3 times our budget that we used for Run Baby Run.
Wow.
And do you know how much money we made back? You know our return on investment for Run Baby Run? 0. Spend money shooting the film. Spend money marketing and publicizing the film. If you remember TV those days, for like 3 months, we had the trailer running. By the time we got into the cinema, by the time the first viewing had finished, the movie was already on CD in Kumasi.
How did they get it?
Or some people had filmed it from within.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So it was a lost venture, because why would people now come and watch you in the cinema when they can get it on CD? And the CD had nothing to do with us. So people were watching it and they were giving us the inchia. Say, Mayadu.
But you made nothing from it.
At that time, who was 2007, 2008, who were the best footballers? Was it Thierry Henry and all those?
Yeah.
Thierry Henry. They're giving fans, but no money was made from it. So I think in our mind with the African Movie Academy Awards, I remember when I was there, I was given the award by Angela Bassett. And I was thinking, okay, this is it. We've made it. It was possible. We've made it. For everything to fizzle out, all the promises that were made from the sponsors, nothing. So I was lost making. And I think that's when the switch happened in my mind that, you know what? I'm not after fame or glory. I want to make an impact. And how do I make impact? There has to be a bottom line. I have to make an impact, but I have to make money to be sustainable. Because if you make an impact 1 year and what you're doing is not sustainable, you can't make an impact the second year. So I think my mind switched there 2007. But I think when I actually actualized it was around 2009.
Okay. Between 7 and 9, what were you doing?
Between 7 and 9, I think I was sleeping a lot. No, between 7 and 9, I was still working. I was doing a few films here and there. Like, we're still doing Home Sweet Home. But I was prepping myself up to do my master's. So I matriculated for my master's in 2009 in UK.
Okay.
And my master's was in policy and evaluation.
Right.
But because I had that passion for the media side, my thesis was on seeing how particular behavioral stimuli is affected by some communication strategies and how that can feed into policy. So although it was policy and evaluation, I brought a bit of a communication angle to it because I was quite fascinated about what I'd done with TV, that I was able to bring particular issues to the fore. Or I could have people talking about HIV and all those kind of things. I was quite fascinated about the medium. So I was trying to find that intersection between both. And then I watched a documentary that changed my life. The documentary is called The Men Who Built America.
Oh.
Have you watched it?
I haven't, no.
No, you should watch that. Yeah. The Men Who Built America. Because the Men Who Built America spoke of JP Morgan, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Tesla. The people who, all the richest guys we have now in the world, the top 10, of which about 7 are all in technology, right? They're all modeled on those older guys. Rockefeller, in today's terms, is the richest man who ever lived because his wealth then, in today's terms, is around 350 billion. I don't think Elon Musk has hit that yet. I think Elon Musk is around 300 billion or so. But what Rockefeller did when he started with his fuel being transported on train tracks, and then the train companies tried to mafia him by increasing the price, and then he started doing it underground in pipes. Just told you on how you think outside the box. But what it told me, or what it taught me, and I always give this example, was that I don't want to be Michael Essien, who is earning £50,000 a week, which at that time in England, we thought was big money. I want to be Abramovich. I want to be the guy who signs Essien's checks and signs the other 11 players' checks and signs the coaches' checks and signs the guys in reserve, their checks. I want to be that guy. Because that guy is calling the shots. So I came with a different mindset that if the structures are not going to be built for us, we have to be in a position to help build those structures. So that's how I went into business.
Let me stop you here for a minute. If you've been watching this show, I want you to subscribe and become part of the family. We are on a journey of changing the lives of people on this channel. And we appreciate you for being here. But if you haven't become part of the family, connect with us. Hit the subscribe button. Now let's carry on the conversation. Wow. And today, you're an investor. You've gone into oil and gas. You've got shares in several companies. You've really mastered the concept of multiple streams. When did that happen for you?
I think, so for me, everything, Derrick, it first starts off in the mind. Yeah, so I'll say that started in 2007.
As well?
Yeah, no, because that started in 2007 in terms of me starting to think. But thinking about it and operationalizing it is two different things, you know. So in terms of thinking about 2007, in terms of operationalizing it, I think I began my hustle around 2011, 2012, you know. And it wasn't an easy hustle, you know. Like sometimes I tell some of my workers, you know, when I'm giving them examples of stuff, I was like, do you know me? I've done security work. I've washed dishes. I've been a laborer. I've washed dishes. I've worked in factories. You know, it's not always been just rosy that I got out of a Mercedes to school. I finished and my parents paid for fees for another school, and it wasn't like that. You know, university, you know, my trajectory has not been linear, and I don't believe in linear trajectories, you know, because like we're talking about, I think anything that is linear is boring. And anything that is linear doesn't have, you know, in painting, they call something the chiaroscuro. So these pictures that you have on there, for instance, the reason why it looks beautiful is because like Mandela's picture, we have different shades. The chiaroscuro deals with different shades. You know, if you have all one shade, the picture is not interesting. You need multiple shades. That's what makes diamond so beautiful. You see, you need multiple shades, something non-linear. You know, my best workers in tech are usually not only computer scientists. Sometimes you have guys who studied architecture and then liked to code themselves. Those guys, when they code, they're on a different level. Even in film, my best editors were those who studied math.
Right.
But they had a passion. Look at you. You're a chemist. So when you touch anything to do with media, like when I've come here, your setup is scientific. You see, because you come from different dimensions. That linear story, or people who follow on linear, they usually don't have it.
Well, that brings me to the expectations of society on us. So, for example, for you, I saw you in Forest Gate. There was a time I saw you in Forest Gate. You were
Buying fish and chips, innit?
I think, and then you must have gone into one of the barber shops and you're wearing Timberlands. You know, the brown one. As a matter of fact, that's where I picked my inspiration from. From getting one as well.
Brown Timbs.
But you see, I would have never thought that the conversation we're going to have today is going to be about mindset, success, and the amazing path that you've chosen. Because at that point, the only thing I could relate you to is somebody on the screens.
But that's where God comes in. You know, for me, what seems obvious, you know, there's things that don't make sense. Because when it doesn't make sense, you recognize that your essence is bigger than just what you see. If it was all about me, I'll probably just still be acting. But when you realize that God can use you for different things and it's not about you, you've been brought here for a purpose. What is your purpose? If your purpose is just to make money, then maybe rob a bank. That's the quickest way to make money. Do you know what I mean? But if your purpose is higher than that, then you have to find different ways in which the same money you rob from banks, you can make it in a legitimate way. Because at each point in time, it grows something in you that makes you ready for the time when it comes to a lot. Because you realize a lot of people who make a lot of money and lose it all, they usually didn't go through the mill.
Yes.
Yeah, they usually didn't. They went from 0 to 60 just like that. When you go through the mill and you go 0, 9, 11, 14, 15, it doesn't mean you're more wicked or you're tighter or you're stingy. You can still be generous. But when you're being generous, you ask the person to bring you proof of what they are using the money for. So for instance, someone asked me for 1,000 cedis. It's not that 1,000 cedis is a lot, but I ask, what are you using it for? If they can't give me a concrete answer, I'll say, okay, so you're paying someone for it. Okay, let the person contact me with a proper invoice. When the person contacts me, like you say, oh, John, I want to take a course in something. I'll be like, oh, you want to take a course? I'm not going to give you the money or put the money into your bank account. You want to take a course, I'll pay directly. And I'll ask to see the certificate that you've actually got. Knowing full well that someone can go there and ask. Do you see what I mean? Yep. But when you've been through the mill, you know the type of things to ask, because you're not doing it just because you have the money. You're actually doing it for impact, to help the person. Because you recognize when you were there and someone gave you help.
And as a matter of fact, sometimes you can go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 11 and you drop back to 0 again. And that's how sometimes the mill can look like.
But usually those people get back up. And when they get back up, they go beyond 11.
Yes.
Because they've gone through the mill.
Yes.
But the person who normally hasn't gone through the mill, when they drop, usually that's it. They can never, because it was like a lucky draw. They can never find the route to success. There has to be a formula. And that formula is only built when you're hustling, when you're learning the ropes, when you're making some mistakes, when you're depending on God. Do you know what I mean? Those things, you can't replicate it. It's like, how do you replicate diamond, you see what I mean? So they haven't been through the mill. And for me, that's what a lot of young people nowadays are missing, that get rich quick. It's like a pack of cards.
Were you ever there though?
No.
Mentally, were you ever, was that something that came to your mind when you were, on the screens, living the life?
Getting rich quick?
Yeah.
No, because, if I was getting rich quick, I think what I always had in mind was what my dad and my mom will think. Wow. Because everything has a consequence in that sense. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And like I told you, my dad was an ambassador, right? And so I had a laissez-passer through him when I was about 15, 16, 17. So I could travel to my father with my diplomatic passport. And when I get to airports, this is European airports, my bag was not searched.
Wow.
And look at East London, Ilford.
Yeah.
People who got to know that is who I was approached me to send drugs to France and Germany. Just put it in your bag. No one's going to see. Your bag is never checked. And as a young man, imagine the temptation of being able to make money fast. But I always had that belief that I don't need to make money fast, that I will make money. Because Derrick, to be honest, my whole thing is not about money.
Okay.
Yeah. If my life was around money, then maybe I would have done that. But I've never really been about money. I've been more about a success in what I'm doing to make God proud of
Wow.
being on earth. You see, and being able to have a means to help people who were not as fortunate as I was. For me, that is my driving force, not the money. But what younger people have to realize is that when you don't chase the money actually chases you. You know, when you are actually thinking of doing good, making an impact, and you're following something you have a passion for, money follows you. You know, because you know how money is. It's just a piece of paper. Nowadays, it's not even paper. Nowadays, it's just it's just numbers.
Numbers.
Yeah,
Sometimes
just
it can go really
numbers.
quickly.
You see, hit your account and you're like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You're wondering, is this really real?
Yeah. You don't even get to feel it, right? So
It feels
you don't
like
really
monopoly.
get the real value of it.
You don't.
Now, once you pay for 300 bags of cement, it's gone.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't feel as painful
Yeah.
when you momo. It's when you go to England and the same amount of money that you dash in Ghana, you change it to pounds. And you're holding the pounds and you're like, hey, Chinese, it's cool.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Now, after all of that, you know, had your dreams, your aspirations. Today, you're leading a team. You are the CEO of eTransact. Now, how did that happen? You know, I know you've worked for the Commonwealth, you've worked with the Queen, under the Queen's offices here and there, but how did that happen?
my master's was in Oxford University. What I studied with the policy side, evaluation, the communication side, I dealt with large data sets. And part of the large data sets I dealt with, one of the case studies that I loved dealt with a company that worked on marketing for elections and buying behavior of people. If you put that together, it was a tool in which you could use to predict buying behavior or voting behavior or ways
Decision
people
making, right?
decision making. So that was one of my case studies. So out of that, I eventually ended up working at a very senior level for that company. But that company was also a technology company, because to manipulate all that large data sets and now use behavioral triggers to be able to understand how people behave and all that, you need technology. Now we are calling it artificial intelligence, machine learning. That was like 15, 12, 13 years ago. That was what it was. So for me, my foray into eTransact began then. It began in that technological side of learning how you use technology for elections, how you use technology for decision making. And it was a very big company, very big respected company. So that was my first understanding on how tech works, because I was never a techie.
You know, that's why when I talk about you've reinvented yourself so many times, I can use that word as many times as I want, right? Because I can see it. You go into this, a little bit of that as well. You learn. You've really educated yourself. You know, you've taken the time to know what could be needed. You educate yourself in that sector. You take experiences with you. You don't just lip them.
Because education is different from schooling, like I always say, and people don't understand. And it all comes down to the foundations that we have. That's why for me, I'm hoping that this new minister, Haruna Idrisu, who's extremely competent in all other ministries he's been in, for me, the greatest equalizer is a good education. You know, because schooling, everyone can go to school, Derrick. But education is lifelong. As I sit here now, I'm still taking courses. Because I'm always inquisitive, I'm always curious to learn new things. Some people think they just go to school and that is it. No. Education is lifelong. Education is, I didn't learn how to do film, for instance. I didn't learn how to write. But once I started writing, then I started reading books. Then I started educating myself. That's why I know about story arcs. That's why I know about foreboding, etc. I didn't just rest on my laurels and say, oh, I'm a decent writer. No, I want to go to the next level. So people have to realize that going to school is the basic level. Educating yourself, you know how university is. University, in all honesty, probably my undergraduate, I was taught, but at master's, I think I taught myself. Because you have to go for tutorials with a professor who has written the books you're using in class. And you have to defend your ideas against that professor. Every week, you read 30, 40 books every week, and you have to defend yourself against a professor. You can't just be reading what is given to you school syllabus. You're reading outside the box. So if I write a paper on politics, my paper on politics is not only on politics. I'm bringing aspects of the economy in. I'm bringing aspects of religion. I'm bringing aspects of culture. Because like I said, everything in life is 3D. Linear routes are useless. One dimension is useless. Everything we do, you're seeing me in 3D, I'm seeing you in 3D. All the stuff we're using, everything is 3-dimensional. So why does our thinking always have to be stuck in 1D, schooling, you learn this, you learn that? No. The greatest inventors that we have from Einstein to Musk to Gates to a shout out to the founder of E-Transact, Valentine Obi. He also thinks outside the box. 3D thinking is what we need amongst the youth and amongst ourselves. We're always very typecast.
Elon Musk was in an interview and they asked him, where did he get the knowledge in trying to build SpaceX? And he said, well, he reads a lot of books. He reads people who have done it and how to put these things together. And he hires the right people who have specialized knowledge. So that buttresses exactly what you said. But that old saying, right? That if you want to hide something from a black man, where do you put it?
Put it in the book. Which is very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very, very sad. The youth of today are not equipping themselves for the next industrial revolutions.
What do you think they should do?
Part of it is them in terms of having more curious minds. But they say when a fish rots, it starts from the head, right? For me, particular policies, I was fortunate, I think a year and a half ago, to have an audience with President Mahama. And he asked a few of us, I think Haptel, Insano, Express Pay, obviously as E-Transact, ITC, Texol, Cowrie. I think there was a few of us that he specifically asked what we see as the future of the fintech tech space. And what I said was that, we're speaking now in English, right? We learned English from kindergarten. Coding is a language. Technology is a language in itself. And I believe Israel has done that. And that's why you have more unicorns in Israel than any other country in the world. Per capita is out of this world. Coding is a language that should be seen as English, should be seen as French. Our young students from age 3, 4, 5, you see Lego. Lego has reinvented itself, by the way.
Okay.
But you see how Lego is.
Piece after piece, yes. I still have one I'm doing. I haven't finished yet.
That is the most basics level of coding and thinking in a structural way. But at the government level, once your taxes are being paid, the government should instill all these policies in our educational system. You know, it starts from how our educational system is structured and whittles down. You know, a lot of people will say Chinese are good in math. Chinese are good. Why are the Chinese good in math?
They're trained, isn't it?
Their language itself is math.
Okay.
You know, in the Chinese language, for instance, when you're saying 14, it's not normal 14, it'll be like 10 add 4. Everything is broken down. So you see, the things that you love, you become very good at, right? Especially when it's incorporated. It's like exercising by playing football if you love football. If you're playing an hour of football and you love football, the exercise you get from that, when you go to the gym, you will not be able to get that same amount of exercise in 2 hours because you're doing something you love. We have to incorporate a way of thinking in the younger people, and it comes from the top.
Do you always think that change must start from the top?
No.
Okay.
I don't think change must always start on top. A lot of the time, the greatest innovations and inventions and the greatest movements in the histories has begun from the bottom. But in the economy that we're in, you see, everything, you have to read the room.
Okay.
You know, and for every illness, there's a particular pill, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Our societies have been through colonization, then pseudo-independence, you know. So there's a certain disempowerment that has happened over centuries,
Okay.
which we have passed on to our children, such that our way of learning, you know, the typical Ghanaian student, remember when you studied in England, it's not like Ghana where you're supposed to speak your mind and tell the teacher, I don't agree with you. You know, no, I think this is wrong. I believe this, that. You do that in Ghana, they say you're rude.
Yes.
Yes. But in the Western world, it's supposed to be an inquisitive mind. You know, so for us here in Ghana, some type of change can still happen from the bottom up. It happens every 4 years, every 8 years when we have elections. The change doesn't happen by members of parliament voting who stays. It starts from the people on the ground. It's bottom up. But there's sometimes where a little bit of help in particular economies where structures haven't worked, that help or the catalyst has to begin from the top. The first ignition of fire has to start from the top here. When the fire lights, then the bottom best start to move.
Right. Let me stop you here for a minute. If you've been watching this show, I want you to subscribe and become part of the family. We are on a journey of changing the lives of people on this channel. And we appreciate you for being here. But if you haven't become part of the family, connect with us. Hit the subscribe button. Now let's carry on the conversation. So now I'm going to throw a question to you. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. If you were to say something to him that will help with how we can ignite, what would it be?
Well, I think the first thing as being with the selection of the minister that he's chosen.
Okay.
Yeah, the minister he's chosen is someone who's bold and someone who I think he's a lawyer, and so he realizes his limitations. But I know he'll select a strong team of educationists. You see, like you were saying, it's not, power is vested in the president, but the president has to know that he's not an expert in all areas. That's why the president chooses different ministers, minister for finance, minister for education, minister for this, etc. You know, for me, the most important thing has to start with the selection of the person that goes into that place, which I think a good choice was done with the education minister. That for me is the beginning.
Okay.
If you put a round circle, if you put a circle in a square space, I think you've already begun by making a mistake. So for me, younger people have to know that it is possible to do anything they want to do. That 3D dimensional
Culture
thinking
does not
the culture
foster that. It's just,
and that's why it has to be a two-way thing. The top has to do its bit, and then the bottom will pick up.
even as simple as our parents. As simple as that. Parents, guardian, people, just the small people around us. The teachers who are teaching our kids. Right? Even at that level, there's a lot of rigidity. You know, you're trying to be this. No, but they want you to be this.
So, Derrick, why are we different?
Because me, I'm rebellious. You know, I'm stubborn with my dreams. And if I say I'm doing it, damn, who is saying it? That's the difference. The difference is that I will do what I have to do because I'm happy to accept the consequences of my decision. And I'm not going to turn around and say it's because daddy said this or mommy said this. That's why I've run through that mistake. You know, I've accepted that from the early stages of my life.
So I think for me, let's say if I was a minister of education.
Yeah.
Or if I'm speaking to the minister of education on this, there has to be something. You know, when we're younger, you remember that course we used to take, civics? Okay, maybe I'm older than you. So I'm showing the age gap now.
Yeah.
There was a course called civics.
Okay.
That teaches you about your responsibility as a citizen. Yeah, obviously, they don't do it anymore. You know, but there's particular things that you don't expect it to happen like this. You know, but for instance, if you had a course on innovation and thinking outside the box, that is not an optional course.
Core.
It's a core. Like how you have the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, right? That you know, the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, for starters, Peter Noom, the executive director, has done an amazing job. But it's optional. It's optional because there's a payment attached to it.
Okay.
But programs like this, I will actually love the government or other institutional partners to come together. I've spoken to Peter, and E-Transact is going to support, for instance, but we can't do it alone. You know, but courses like Duke of Edinburgh equip the students to think outside the box. Students going hiking, working with other students to problem solve, think around issues. That is where it starts. You know, it doesn't start with big things. So it starts with the smaller Lego type of things where you put a child in a pen and they have different bits and they have to put different bits together, you know, because they want to get to a particular point. Do you see what I mean? They want to get to a particular... And that is how you really re-engineer how young people start to think. You know, you have to legalize how they study and find ways that promote innovation and promote that feeling of empowerment. Because where you got that from is not just rebellion. It's a feeling, what they call self-efficacy. The feeling that you can do something. But if I'm to look through your DNA, etc., I'm sure I'll find it somewhere in there. Maybe your mom has that bit of that rebellious spirit. Maybe your dad has that bit.
Definitely my dad.
Or sometimes it'll be your grandfather or an uncle.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? There's something there that someone you looked up to broke the mold. They reinvented the wheel. Like I was telling you, it's only a politician and pastor I've never been. But I've worked in nearly everything else. Finance, investment, you find me there. Different sectors, you find me there. You know, but where did that come from? Come from thinking. For mine, it came from my mom.
Okay.
Yeah, it came from my mom. My dad is a chemist, like I said, but my dad is straight shooting the straight arrow, you know. Academic, first class type. This is the way. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? My mom is brilliant in multiple things.
Right.
You know, my mom has done every business under the sun.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We always laugh at her that it never makes a profit. So for a long time, we thought my mom was just a bad businesswoman.
Right.
Then we realized later on that her objective was not for profit all along. Because my mom always just likes giving out. So my mom, on her estate, ACP estates, my mom will say, I want to sell meat pies. I want to sell meat pies. So she'll get her house helps and this week is a meat pie. But my mom, the meat pie that my mom would do,
solid.
Proper corned beef with chunks of beef, with carrots. The cost, when you calculate it, is maybe about 15 cedis.
You sell it for 10 cedis.
She sell it for 8. Do you know that?
She didn't do the math.
Because she wants people to enjoy it.
Okay.
So she's not thinking about.
Wow. If I ask you this question, what will be your answer?
Okay.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
My best advice is that God is the center of everything. For my dad and my mom.
This one, nobody can dispute this one.
Yeah.
It's bam.
Yeah.
I want you to recommend a book for my audience.
So, in line with number 1 would be the Bible. Not that I'm a voracious reader of myself.
He said he hasn't been a pastor before.
Yes.
Maybe he's on the road to be.
I didn't do my quiet time this morning, so it's a book I would like to recommend because I've read lots of books. Like I see a lot of your books here. We're talking of The Alchemist, everything. But one thing, Derrick, I've realized in every book I've read and through documentaries that I've watched is that all those principles are in the Bible. All those principles are in the Bible. And I don't know about the Quran. I've not studied the Quran.
I've got one here.
Okay. I've not studied the Quran. You know, I learned about it in school, the surahs, etc. So I don't know about how the Quran is in terms of particular, but I'm sure it will be very similar in terms of telling you about particular business decisions. You know, but I found out that there's nothing. You pick something. Let's do a little test. Pick something you have learned from a book, and let's see if we can find a Bible story.
Oh no, I'm sure you can. I mean, one of my favorite books is "As a Man Thinketh" by James Allen, and it's a biblical quote. So there's plenty. The book of Ecclesiastes. If you want to do business, I think that's the first book you probably should read.
Ecclesiastes, Proverbs.
Yeah.
I mean, so for me, and I'm not being, how do I put it, self-righteous or anything. I don't know the Bible as well as I should. I've not read the Bible from beginning to the end, like a lot of people have read, you know, and I should do more to read more of the Bible to be a better person. I haven't. But I know that it is the best book out there.
Okay, you heard that. This is my biggest question. As the CEO of eTranzact, what are your plans for the company moving forward?
So, Derrick, it's an interesting question. So I'll try and answer it in a way that does not divulge too much of my strategy. Because, you know, first mover's advantage and strategy is everything in business.
Yeah.
But let me take you through the the historical trajectory of most fintechs. To start off with, a lot of people just put E-Transact into the space of a fintech. It's a financial technology company. But E-Transact really is a technology company.
Okay.
The difference is that a fintech just deals with payments.
Yep.
A technology company can deal with payments, but it also builds solutions, which are not just financial solutions. The growth of fintech began just with payments. So you had, for instance, PayPal, which Elon Musk was behind,
Yep.
which was not doing well. So remember what they did?
They sold it.
eBay.
Huh.
Because they realized that, okay, we have the payment system, but if it's not doing well, let's build something and append our payment system to it. Right? So Amazon did the opposite. So Amazon built that thing and then put the payments later because it had PayPal already in the space. So PayPal would not be what it was without eBay. Right? So they started off as a fintech, but the technology side made them build something that they appended the payment system. So you see that the fintech trajectory has always been payment systems. Payment systems. But over the past 10 years, you realize that there's different verticals. Some technology companies can choose just one vertical, and they are billionaires from it.
Right.
So one might choose property. One might choose regulation. Anything that you find difficult, they might choose one vertical to solve.
Okay.
The future for us as a fintech is on shedding our fintech brand and becoming more of a technology company.
Okay.
Because the reason we exist is not just to give payment solutions. The reason we exist is to give solutions.
Technology-based solutions.
Because you know the saying that if you want to make $1 million, solve a problem for 1 million people. Let each of them pay you.
1 million. Then you become
And
a
you get
millionaire.
millionaire. So our trajectory is to move into the space of specific verticals.
Okay.
So for us, for instance, the most important verticals in any society is education, health, religion.
Okay.
Right? So as a technology company, our focus over the next 10 years is in finding the verticals where there's a lot of solutions that we can provide.
Okay.
And building management systems that allow those verticals to be operational. One I didn't add is government. Government loses a lot of its money in so many different ways.
I mean, one of your competitors has done that with the previous government.
You know, we want to work above board with private sector and public sector to provide solutions that end up bringing money, not into our pockets, but into the pockets of the Ghanaian, into government coffers. Right. Obviously, like I said, with anything you do, you want to be sustainable.
Yep.
And being sustainable means that you have to charge a fee. But your fee has to make sense. You can't be bringing 100 cedis in and telling the person that out of the 100 cedis, I want 20 cedis. just for providing a service. I believe that sometimes that's where we go wrong. And sometimes what you have is a good deed or you have good intentions. But like they said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You have good intentions, but if you don't watch out, it can be misconstrued as bad.
Wow.
Yeah. We want to work in those particular verticals. Revenue assurance for governments. We've done that over the past 15 years for E-Transact. You know, E-Transact began in Nigeria. It's publicly listed in Nigeria. Police, army, we've been doing payments over the past 10, 15 years. E-Transact has built management systems for universities, for over 150 universities in Nigeria.
Wow.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have experience in those areas. We have experience in ensuring that the government is able to get the revenue it deserves so that it can use it on the things that it's supposed to use it on for the people. We have the experience in building management systems across education and health, as well as churches.
I think I'm so glad I asked this question because that in itself has educated me about what the business does. And, you know, we've gone all the way from his acting, the things he's done in the middle, where he got the mindset from, and where he is now. I think it's been an amazing conversation.
Definitely.
You know, thank you so much, you know, for coming. I think if you had not come, Charlie, it would have hurt me a lot. But you know, you've really killed it. You've nailed it. You've given us a lot to go with. You know, especially the young. I've got a lot of young audience. You know, hopefully they take something from this. And the book they recommended it. People always expect the book my guest is going to recommend. And today it was not even just a book. It's the Bible. Like the Bible has several books, right?
Usually they guess. Usually you say they're able to guess.
No, a guest.
Oh, okay,
right,
okay.
will give us a book. And my audience are always expecting the book. But today you didn't give us a book. You gave us books.
I gave you books. So maybe should we zero in on the book within
Maybe
the
one
books?
book. Maybe give me one book.
Do you want Revelations?
Hey, Charlie, Revelations there.
No, let me see. I think I'll go for the book of Daniel.
That's it. So the book of Daniel, that's what Dr. John Apea says. Now, if you've been here with us from the beginning and you made it to the end, I want you to leave a comment wherever you're listening or watching and let me know that you actually did make it. The last few episodes that we released, I think there was an episode with Kwakubediakon Chocolate, and he made a promise that he was going to give a gift to someone. We're actually working on that, so that's going to happen very soon. I'll announce it and let you guys know who's going to get the gift. But thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, you know, sitting here. May you to watch and listen to this conversation. If you're at the gym, because I know a lot of people go to the gym when they're listening to us. So if you're at the gym, Charlie, carry on. And yeah, leave a comment. Let me know. Stay connected. My name is Derrick.